Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back. Brendan again. In today's video, we're gonna take a look at another great adjustable bench, which I just recently mentioned on my Rep Fitness AB 5200 video, and that's the Get RX'd FIDAB-2 or FIDAB-2. They're very similar benches with some respect, but also the Get RX'd has a few options which I think might sway you in this direction, depending on what your preferences are. So let's go ahead and take a deeper look at this bench from Get RX'd. All right, so let's talk about some of the specs here. As I already mentioned, it's very similar to the Rep Fitness AB 5200, but there are some distinguishing features of this, but a lot of the basic specs are the same. So the weight of the bench is the same. The height of the bench for me, for my measurement, is just over 17.5 inches. The width of the pad on the back actually measures for me right around 12 inches, which is right where the Rep pad measured. Although if you take a look at the specs on the site, it measures 12.5. I am not quite there yet on my term. So again, very similar in that fashion, where the front pad is also that width at the back and tapers more towards the front. Overall, very solid bench and has a minimal gap as well of just under 2 inches. So if you're looking again to use this as a flat bench, this could be potentially great given the specs and the pad length, where you're not going to find that this gap really causes that much, if any, of an issue. All right, so let's start about one of the big key differences with this bench, and that is the pad itself. One of the big complaints I had with the Rep pad, which was also a Pro, was the actual padding itself was very squishy or compressible. The Get RX'd team has put together a more solid foam here, so it's denser, so it definitely feels more solid without being as hard as the concrete type padding that I'm used to in my Rogue Fitness Adjustable 2.0. So this pad is kind of a hybrid between the Rogue's very stiff pad and the Rep Fitness's more supple pad. Now, where this is gonna come really into play is just, I think, the durability, and also if you're using this bench for other things like step-ups. One of the things I mentioned with the Rep pad was that it was kind of squishy and I felt like my ankle was gonna turn over. This one adds some more stability for sure. Now, another difference here is the actual material used on the pad itself. It's not quite the same as the Rep, but it is still very sticky. However, truth be told, I do find that it's not as good as for flat benching as the Rep one, just because that compression that you typically get from the Rep adds a little bit more stability when really digging in, but this is still a phenomenal bench for flat bench pressing. So the overall design of this bench is also very similar when you take a look at the bare bones option. So the bench retails for $489. It's a tripod-like design, which I like. Again, that way the front feet don't get in the way for benching. It has a handle in the front, but this time it's a rubberized handle, which makes gripping and moving around really easy, especially when you combine that with the wheels on the back of the bench. So this thing weighs about 115 pounds or so. So with the wheels and handle, moving it around is really quite a breeze. One of the differences you'll find though is in the back brace. Instead of a single post like we saw on the Rep model, there's actually a double post with a flatter option here. So that's going to add a little bit more stability towards the head or end of the benching pad. Now, I've already talked about how this bench is great for flat bench pressing and other dumbbell work, but it's also really great when it comes to adjustability. It has a total of 7 options on the back pad, ranging anywhere from 0 up to 85 degrees. And again, you get some really nice hook and ladder system here with laser cut numbers to know which degree that you're actually using. That side also includes a Get RX'd laser cut logo in steel, which again looks very nice and is a nice finishing touch on a high-end bench like this. Now on the front side, you have the same 3 adjustables, flat and 2 different degrees of incline, but where this bench starts to pull away from the Rep Fitness model that we recently reviewed is the fact that you can actually point the bottom pad down as well to do decline work, which brings me to my next point. So one of the great things that Get RX'd did is they thought about the expandability of their products, which you often don't see on accessories. Now, oftentimes on racks, you can buy stuff to add on, and they're versatile and get developed in the future, but accessories usually get the short end of the stick, specifically when it comes to benches. So I was really happy to see that Get RX'd put a receiving end right here, similar to what you'll find on a toe hitch. You'll see a red ball down here as well. And that's because there's a leg roller attachment that you can put on here, so you can use this for things like decline bench or even decline ab work. So really happy to see that. One of the things you'll also notice up top is that this does have a kickstand, and it's in a much better design, I think, than the Rep Fitness model that we looked at before, because honestly, you can't really tell that it's here, yet it offers the same stability if you want to kind of tuck this up and out of the way. So you guys probably already saw it in some of the clips that I've showed you, but you can also notice with the dual post that I mentioned underneath that also adds added support, you also have the option to add on some other accessories, and in this case you have dumbbell holders. And these are great because if you're doing things like incline dumbbell rows, which I'm a big fan of, they easily hold the dumbbells there for you and allow you to easily access them versus having to reach and pick them up off the ground. Now, another benefit of having them there, that is if you are worried about this bench not being stable, which I don't think is a problem for anybody, you could always put some dumbbells there to add some extra weight and stability to this bench even further. So if you recall, one of the big issues I had with the rep bench was the fact that the stability just wasn't there for me. And it was an easy fix, like a $6 fix that you go out and do yourself, but it shouldn't have to be that way, especially when you're talking about benches that cost over $500 after shipping and tax. So I'm really happy to report that the Get RX'd bench has already solved these issues by adding in rubber washers for both the lower and the upper pad hook and ladder system. So even though this bench has a lot going for it, there are some negatives to it in my opinion. And some of the negatives have to do with its biggest seller point, which are its versatility and attachments that they offer. So the leg roller, dumbbell holder, they're great. I think if you're buying this bench, those are kind of no-brainers, and one of the reasons you'd want to buy this bench as is, but it quickly escalates the cost. So the base price of the bench is $489, which is around what you'll find for a lot of the competition. The leg rollers add another $90 to that. The dumbbell holder adds another $30. This bench also only ships freight, as it should. It's 115 pounds or so as standard, and you don't want this thing in a loose box being handled by FedEx or UPS. But at the end of the day, to get the setup that I have here with shipping and tax to where I am in Rhode Island, I'm looking at about $760 to $770, which puts this bench in a very expensive category and might turn some people off. Now, true, you don't have to get the attachments, but I think that's one of the things that really sells this bench for me. Speaking of the attachments, the leg rollers, kind of annoying. And I say that because if you want to use this in a vertical orientation with the kickstand to put it away, you can't have the leg rollers on here. You have to take them off, in which case you also have to find somewhere to store them. And for me, the best place to store the leg rollers are on the bench. They're off the floor, they're out of the way. I don't have to worry about it, but I can't store it vertically because they block that kickstand. It also kind of has to deal with moving the bench around because the leg rollers hang down at the end where you would typically lift the opposite end up to move these on the wheels. This really limits how you can move it. I can only get it up a couple of inches. Yep, I said it. But you can't move it around that easy unless you, again, take the leg rollers off, which is an inconvenience. Now, what I'd really like to see is a very easy fix for that part of it. And that is, if you take a look at the male end of the leg rollers, there is a hole on the bottom side so that this red knob can connect and hold it in place like it is now. However, on the opposite side, it doesn't have that hole. If Get RX were to simply drill a hole there, one could then take the leg roller out, flip it over, so this, instead of pointing down, would point up. And that way, when you lift the bench to move it on the wheels, it would make it that much more easier, and you wouldn't really have to take it off. Now, another big problem with this is just the length that it extends, about 9 inches. So if you're gonna put this up against a wall, or depending on where your bench press setup is, you might have some clearance issues potentially. But again, at the end of the day, you could always take this off, but it's just a slight inconvenience. All right, so long video short, I like the Get RX'd FIDAB-2. You know, it has a lot of the same features that some of the competition has at a similar price, but it does have some stuff that it starts to differentiate itself, including a decline mode, a leg roller attachment, the actual handles for dumbbell rows as well, which I'm a big fan of. And some of the finishes on this are just a little bit nicer, like I said, by adding in those washers to add that stability to the hook and ladder system. And depending on if you like a little bit firmer pad while still not being too firm, this might have some better options than some of the competition out there. One of the other things I really like about this, which for me is a selling point, not necessarily you, is it comes in more colors than any other bench out there. I think there's like 6 or 7 colors available. So if you're into that kind of thing, like I obviously am, a ton of great options out there for you. I went with black on this one just because it's going to just blend in the best here in the gym, but you can get pretty crazy. I think there's a yellow one even. Now, if I didn't answer any of your questions in this video, or you have any other comments or want to get my opinion on anything, make sure you leave a comment in the comment section below. I'll link directly to this on the Get RX site if you're interested in buying one. In the meantime, as always, thanks for watching and stay big.